What are some assumptions that you think people might make about you based on your style or how you appear at first glance?
I used to take a yoga class, and this yoga class was at 10 o'clock, 9:30 in the morning, and everybody in the yoga class was othered, was white. When I first joined the class, people would look at me wondering, well, what does your husband do? How is it possible that you can take a yoga class at 9:30 in the morning on a weekday? If I were white, that question wouldn't be asked. It just seems like maybe I was supposed to be working in an office somewhere, as opposed to having the luxury of taking a yoga class. I was born and raised in Los Angeles. My mother, who was probably about 16 when I was born, there was a friend of my mom's who said, what's that noise? What's that noise I hear in the back? Oh, well, and the woman looked in the back seat on the floor, and I was in a box. Girl, you have a baby back here. When did you have this baby?
Your father was not a presence?
No. My mother died when I was 6. I have little memories, being in the house alone, being a vulnerable little 2 or 3-year-old, and having some of the people that came through sexually assaulting me. You know, I really don't want to be in the Guinness, how do you say that? Guinness Book of World Records of having been raped at 2. I mean, who survives that kind of stuff? I remember being in kindergarten, and I wanted to be in kindergarten because it put me out of harm's way. When the bell rang, the kids were dismissed, and they would go through the cloakroom to get their lunches, and then through a door, and they would go out and they would pair up and have their lunch. I didn't have a lunch. I never had a lunch. And one day, maybe 10 minutes before the bell would ring, I had asked to go to the bathroom, and I pulled out my little paper bag, and I took one thing out of every other lunch and put it in my bag. And I'd go and sit on a bench and have lunch.
How did your mom die?
She smoked Camel cigarettes. She was smoking in bed, and she dropped the cigarette, and the apartment, her room, caught on fire, and the doors swelled, and she couldn't get out. And I became an orphan like that, and then realizing that I would go and live with my aunt. Perhaps she was the best example of who not to be and what not to be and what not to do than any nurturing. I don't even remember ever being told that that I was loved. I was never. I can't remember anybody ever telling me that, including my mother. Unconsciously, I had to love myself. I had to believe that all of these things were not my fault. My body was being brutalized, but my soul remained vigilant. I really wanted to be a mother. I wanted to have a family. I wanted to create that security. I got pregnant because somebody said that they loved me. And he said, well, what do you want me to do about it? And basically wrote me off. And I was a major disappointment to my aunt and my uncle and folks who thought that I was going someplace, and now I was just like everybody else, pregnant and applying for welfare, because that's what you did. I was 18. I was, I think, 7.5, 8 months pregnant, and I went to the doctor, and there was no heartbeat for the baby that I was carrying. The baby dropped in about 2 weeks, and I went to the hospital and gave birth to a very badly decomposed baby boy. And everybody treated me like a leper. And that was the first of 5 children that I lost. And I don't know anybody, I'm not, wanting any trophies or anything, but that's pretty hard. And I became really depressed, and I wanted to die. And I just wouldn't get out of bed, and I just wanted to just wilt away. One day, I guess I went to sleep, and I woke up going, and that's when I got out of bed. And that's when I said, I've got to do something because I am going to die. And I put on my clothes, and I never looked back. I realized that life is much bigger and broader than me, and I have to take it outside of myself. I found a job as a receptionist and then became an assistant to a casting director. Somebody noticed me at one of the casting sessions. Just, hey, you, come here, can you read this? And I read it, and everybody in the room looked at each other, and the next thing I knew, I was doing a television commercial for McDonald's, actually, and I made a lot of money.
Wow.
And that was the beginning of my getting a nice apartment and moving out on my own. I heard this song by Peggy Lee called "Is That All There Is?" And I was thinking about my life. Is this all there is? You know, you get a national television commercial and you make a little money and you live in a nice apartment, and then what? And the next weekend I had a big garage sale. I sold everything, and I bought a one-way Freddie Laker flight to England. I didn't know anybody, had never been to Europe in my life, and that was the beginning, the very, very beginning of what would be a 7-year modeling career, traveling around the world.
You got discovered?
I got discovered, probably that day.
By who?
A neighbor who was a budding designer, Rifat Özbek.
Oh my God. He discovered you?
Yeah, I ended up working for Yves Saint Laurent, for Courrèges, for Givenchy. Then I tried to get pregnant again. And that is when I had to have that pregnancy terminated at about 2.5, 3 months. And then I said, okay, white flag, done. I can't do this again. A year later, I adopted my daughter from a very courageous 18-year-old single parent. I followed her and supported her, not financially, but just emotionally through the rest of her pregnancy, and was there at in the operating room. She had a C-section. And the nurses lifted Piers from her birth mother's womb and handed it to me. Her mother said, "I'm so glad to give you a girl because you deserve a daughter." And it was amazing. It's amazing. But she would prove to be an opportunity for my own growth, because I was really jealous of her. I never had an opportunity to experience the unconditional love that my daughter had from me. So,
So can you talk about what you've done, how you've gone back to South LA?
I lived in the Valley, and I raised my children in the Valley. And oftentimes people thought that I was a nanny or a housekeeper. I worked really hard as a landscape designer, and I saved my money. I got tired of people crossing the other side of the street and clutching their bags, or not being served in a restaurant. I didn't see enough diversity. I went back to the neighborhood that I grew up in, and people seemed a lot warmer, and there was diversity there. And then I thought, oh my God, where's my daughter going to go to school? My daughter asked me, why didn't you move us here? Because the first couple of weeks, a kid was killed on our street. And I heard gunfire often. My daughter said, well, what are you going to do about it, Mom? And I said, I'm going to have a party. I used the system, the tools of the system, and I blocked off the streets. And I had an old-fashioned block party. The next year I had it again. And the next year, the following year, I had it again and again. Last year, I would say there was about over 700 people that participated in our block party. And through that effort, I've created a sense of community from the inside out. That's important, to know who your neighbors are and to be able to be the village. So I thought about food insecurity and how the food that I saw at some of those stores I wouldn't even feed my dog. And about a month and a half to 2 months ago, I opened my first organic produce market.
What would you tell your 6-year-old self?
It's not your fault. That you're okay. I got you. Yeah. And that I love you. And I won't hurt you.
How do you feel now?
The same way I felt when I walked in. Fine, good, ready, where I'm supposed to be.
That was amazing. That was epic.